Yeah, it is Flyers game day. Jason Martinez, Brian Smith getting ready for Flyers Sabres. Quick turnaround. Flyers lost last night 6-2 against the Toronto Maple Leafs. No Tony DeAngelo. Basically, one shift in the second period. Basically, the second and third period played 7:05 in the game, but they're right back at it tonight. TK said after the game last night, Travis Konechny in his after the game media availability, Bri, it's the thing about hockey. You can get right back on it, and that's the case tonight.
Yeah, this is really quite something because this was not a scheduled game. This was a rescheduled game from the aftermath of that blizzard in Buffalo over the holidays. Flyers weren't supposed to go to Buffalo till March 4th. I don't know who Buffalo was supposed to play, but they rescheduled that game for March 4th, and then they sent the Flyers there tonight instead. And it is really needed, I think, after last night's game. Plus, not to mention that March 4th game was going to be a back-to-back on the weekend, and it was going to be a 12:30 start. So I think the Flyers would rather be there tonight under every possible, arrangement of this whole situation. The fact that they get to go back right out after last night's game and, try to right the ship a little bit is exactly what Travis Konechny's talking about there. And, John Tortorella touched on it too a little bit in his post-game press conference that they just, can't wait to get back out there what's now tonight and try to improve on that.
Yeah, and try and get the bad taste out of your mouth from
Yeah.
that loss that ended a 4-game win streak against Toronto, and one where, Tort said they kind of got what they deserved from a defensive standpoint, although he did like what they generated offensively. And the interesting thing is it's very rare in life that you're itching to go to Buffalo in January as opposed to March, right?
I can't. I'm not sure there's
fate.
much of a time that I'm itching to go there at all. Maybe it's nice in the summer. I don't know, but yeah, that was that's again the I guess the kind of the nicer thing about this trip. You're up and back. You don't have to go up the day before during the day or anything like that. But from the grand scheme of things last night, like you said, he liked what the Flyers did offensively. Had 22, 23 scoring chances in that game. The problem was that they just gave Toronto too much to work with, and you give a team like Toronto the chances that the Flyers did, and they're gonna bury him. That was the part of the game last night that was not sharp for the Flyers. The defensive play, Carter Hart, I'm sure would tell you he had an off night, and they're all like you said, they're all eager to get back out there and get another shot at it tonight. It will be Sam Ersson tonight, but other than that, the lineup looks like it's going to stay the same. So Tony DeAngelo is going to get a chance to redeem himself as well. And we'll see where the Flyers come out. If I was Buffalo, I wouldn't want to play the Flyers tonight, to be quite honest.
Yeah, even though they're on the back-to-back.
Yeah.
You know what? How players handle being benched or being scratched, I think is a fascinating, project to look at it, to see the human condition and how players handle it. And if I was looking for the right things to say after a player was benched basically for 2 periods after signing here as a free agent, I would kind of put the poster board on the wall of what Tony DeAngelo said. He said, they asked him if he thought it was deserved, and he said, no player is ever going to tell you he deserves to sit down because he wants the chance to get back out and redeem himself and help his team. He said, but I wasn't nearly good enough. I wasn't making plays. I made a good decision, and the puck rolled off my stick and ended up in the back of the net. It's not good enough, and it's unacceptable. I thought the way that he handled it was perfect, mature. And look, that seems weird to some people going, Tony DeAngelo is a guy that's had issues and blah, blah, blah. I thought he handled it perfectly.
I thought 2 things when I watched that video this morning. I thought the first thing I thought was that in 20 years, Tony DeAngelo is going to be a coach in this league. I really think that he's got a future in coaching. And that this is not the part of it that you were talking about. This was when he was asked about the power play. The way he broke down the power play.
I agree.
I mean, it was
the entries.
We've already heard about him, looking at, seeing opportunities and drawing up plays. That just kind of struck me. But the rest of it, yes. He comes in. A lot of times you'll find guys, they'll come in, they'll have a sour look on their face. They'll look like they just got benched. I feel like Tony DeAngelo realizes that, this whole situation stinks and I didn't play well, but at the end of the day, I'm playing in the National Hockey League and it's still, a heck of an opportunity. So, I really liked not just the way he said it, the way he said the things you mentioned, but, he's in there. even the questions that he declined to answer, he had a smile on his face. I mean, it just
he didn't duck
I
either.
You've nailed it just in terms of that being how you react to something like that.
Yeah, and the fact that we talk about accountability, it's a phrase word, it's whatever, right? But it doesn't mean anything if you don't have self-accountability. And I thought he showed a lot of self-accountability and said I wasn't good enough. It was the fact that he used the word unacceptable, I think, is what really kind of hit me. And I go, you know what, that he didn't like it, he understood it, and that's maybe part of it. Sometimes guys, they don't understand it, and that's part of the problem. So he understood why he got sat on that bench. I think the Buffalo Sabres are a really interesting team because their rebuild started in about 2009, and they've had definitely had a bunch of different iterations of it. And I think they're, I guess, the longest streak in the NHL of a team that hasn't made the playoffs, if I recall correctly. And from high draft picks with Jack Eichel to 2 number 1 overalls and Rasmus Dahlin and Owen Power. It seems like this time, Bri, they're on to something. Now, Eichel's gone. They probably didn't want to trade Eichel. Circumstances ended up dictating that with the disagreement on how to handle that surgical procedure to the neck and everything else. Not multiple players have had, including Joel Farabee. But, they are where they are now, and they're a team that's on the rise seemingly. They score a ton of goals. They've identified players that they want to be part of this thing, including a guy, Matthias Samuelsson, who hadn't scored an NHL goal and played more than 82 games when they gave him a 7-year extension. I had Marty Biron on Stick to Hockey Live today, and he said a big part of it was just the commitment to the standard, kind of like what they're doing here with Torts and Don Granado, and having a vision and sticking to it.
Absolutely. To kind of amplify your earlier point, it goes back to when Danny Briere was a Buffalo Sabre, this whole situation that they're in. If you recall, I don't even recall who the ownership was. It was not the Pagulas. It was the people before them. But they had said that, this is 2006, I think, 2007, that they were going to pivot to entirely video scouting. They got rid of their entire scouting staff, and almost, I guess they kept some guys around to watch the video, but they were. I mean, it just shows you can't do it. I mean, to me, is what it showed to me at the time, and it kind of sent them spiraling. And then from there, you've got sales of the team. You've got the Pagulas own the Bills too. They've got a lot going on. They've they had to get all that squared away and situated. But you're right. Now they do seem to be on a path up. It was a little bit of it reminds me a little bit of Edmonton, although it took a little longer. But they had that fairly public falling out with Jack Eichel, and the difference of opinion on the surgery, and it ended up being irreparable. So they trade him, and you get some guys back in that deal. Fortunately for the Sabres, that are helping your team quite a bit. So
Tuck's making a big difference.
Yeah. I mean, he's got 43 points here in 37 games this year, plus 13. He is definitely one of the huge pieces to this, and they've in addition to not having Eichel for a while, they bumped through a few years where Jeff Skinner looked like he was maybe done. I don't know if done's the word, but he wasn't
overpaid for sure.
The Sabres thought when they brought him in. Yeah. He's having a bounce back year. You've got Dahlin again, like you mentioned, turning the corner, and a guy like Matthias Samuelsson, who of course we know him extremely well, and we know the family, and he's really a spitting image of his dad, just in the way he plays the game and things like that. And that's why they want him in here for the long term to be one of the defensive stalwarts of this team. He doesn't have to go out there and score a ton of points, but yeah, I mean, it does seem like they are finally dialing in how they want to form this moving forward.
Yeah, and he plays alongside Rasmus Dahlin. Talking to Marty Biron today, I brought up that 8-game losing streak they have, and how they've been kind of an up and down team. And he corresponded that right with Matthias Samuelsson's injury and how that changed their slotting. And, Matthias playing alongside Rasmus Dahlin, who, by the way, has got 44 points in 36 games. I brought up last night that they had 3 players last night over a point, or 3 or 4 players over a point per game. This team has 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This team has 5.
Well,
I mean, Tage Thompson's just, I mean, his hair is on fire at 56 points.
I don't know if you had a chance to watch Torts' pregame availability today. It happened just about an hour ago. But he was asked, how did the Flyers, is this a chance for the Flyers to bounce back after, with a team that's, not as potent as Toronto? And his response was, well, I'm not sure that this team isn't one on that list.
They're more potent. They're the highest scoring team in the league.
Yeah, I mean, they have the Maple Leafs have well-known weapons. This team has lesser-known weapons, and a lot of folks are finding out. I mean, as they go through the schedule, a lot of folks are finding it out. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be a similar situation for the Flyers tonight, where they can't come out and defend like they did last night, and they can't give up the opportunities that they gave up last night, and that's all there is to it.
Yeah, Toronto 7th in the league and scoring at 3.44 goals per game. How about Buffalo? 1st in the league, 4 goals per game. Let's take our first time out here on the pregame show. Excuse me. It is Flyers Game Day, brought to you by Betway. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. And we'll be back after this. Brian Smith, Jason Martinez on the Flyers Broadcast Network. Pre-game show. There he is, Brian Smith, Jason Martinez, getting you ready for Flyers Sabres tonight. Like we mentioned before the break, Sabres averaging 4 goals per game. Number 2 on the list is the Boston Bruins at 3.85 goals per game. And you look at the Sabres team, Brian, we just kind of touched on it. Guys over a point per game. Tage Thompson, we know about that monster game he had earlier this season, but this guy's also got 14 power play goals. He's got 10 power play assists, so 24 points on the man advantage. He's got a shorthanded goal. His shooting percentage is through the roof at 19.1%. You got to think that maybe that cools off a little bit. But when you got other support acts like Rasmus Dahlin on that blue line, 44 points in 36 games. Alex Tuck, who's come in on the right side as well, 37 games played. He's got 43 points. And Skinner, as you mentioned, over a point per game player as well. 34 games, 39 points. And Dylan Cousins coming into his own as well at the NHL level, 37 points in 37 games. So this is a team that can throw it at you in a bunch of different directions.
Yeah, you can look at shooting percentage and you can say, okay, there's some guys in this league that they don't cool off of that. They do stay up in that high teens all year. So maybe Thompson's having one of those years. What probably won't happen is the Sabres probably won't have 4 guys above 15% when the year is done, like they do right now.
That's unlikely.
I mean, that is nuts. That is to have. You look down their shooting percentage at their 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Their top 9 guys are all in double figures. That includes Dahlin at 10.7%. So the rest of them obviously are forwards, but that kind of that's a kind of average that you don't see very often. So that probably will be, again, kind of cooling off at some point here. It is what's really intriguing to me, in addition to the scoring, is the goaltending situation. I mean, Craig Anderson is
my age.
Yeah, basically he's rolling along here at a
Yeah.
.923 save percentage. I can't say I know exactly what the situation is in Buffalo right now with the goalies. They have 3 of them that have played.
Well, he's not the future.
No, he's the past, really. But
he's the younger, the older brother of the past.
One of my kids' favorite players, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, I believe, was supposed to be the future here. And then Eric Comrie is, not on the roster right now. He's got 11 games, so they are, again, getting some very opportunistic goaltending from a guy that's got a ton of experience, obviously, and probably is a pretty good mentor to Luukkonen.
That's why he's there.
One of the best guys I think you'll meet in the game too. He's never played for the Flyers, but he had a Flyers connection just from when his wife had a cancer battle. And came through Philadelphia for some treatment, and the Flyers organization was able to get her in touch with some specific doctors for her specific condition. So he's always had a little bit of a connection to the team from there, even though he never played here. But I mean that's part of it, is when you have a lot of times you'll see teams that are doing something like this, averaging 4 goals per game. Problem is they're giving up 3.5. Buffalo is almost there. They're giving up 3.4. But they've gotten good enough goaltending to get them to this point, which, you look at it, they're only 5 points ahead of the Flyers. They do have 3 games in hand. But they're taking care of things, maybe the opposite of what the Flyers are doing. They've got the offense in place. Now they just have to get the back end going.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you can always tell when a goalie's playing well when they've all played roughly the same amount of games, 14, 13, and 11. Anderson's played 14, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen 13, and Comrie 11. And the save percentage of one guy is way better than the other 2.
Yeah.
You go, well, that's not just good team in front of him, good structure. That's the one guy is outplaying his structure and outplaying the younger 2, because .923 save percentage for Craig Anderson is certainly very good on this team. And like you said, they score a lot of goals. They get a lot of run support. But, you got to keep it out of your net as well. Tage Thompson is so interesting because when he was traded to Buffalo, he's part of that Ryan O'Reilly deal. He comes from St. Louis. They kind of gave up on him in 41 games. He only 9 points, 3 of them goals. His first year at Buffalo, he played 65 games. Ho-hum 12-point season, 7 goals, 5 assists. He's only 21 at that time. But that's when a lot of players, are starting to kind of come into their own. And Tage Thompson's a first-round pick, 26th overall. And then in 1920, he misses pretty much the entire year except for a game. 2021, he comes in 38 games, 8 goals, 6 assists, another ho-hum year. Then last year, in his 24-year-old year, 78 games, 38 goals, 30 assists. You go, where did this come from? And this year, in 37 games, he's got 31 goals and 25 points, or 25 assists, 56 points, in just 37 games. And this is, sometimes those bigger frame guys, he's huge, 6'7", take a little longer to find their legs, if you will, at the NHL level. Not like a baby giraffe being born, but it takes a little time.
Yeah, it's certainly also, you look at the whole range of the way things played out for some of these guys that were drafted around that time. He is a 2016 draft pick. What I'm trying to say here, the trajectory for these guys took them to the place where, okay, they're coming into the league in 2018, 2019, and then they get their first couple of years in. You're supposed to grow from there. Well, for this group, they start growing, and then bang, we hit COVID, and a season gets cut in half, and then we don't play for Sabres weren't in the playoffs that year, so he didn't play a game from March of 2020 until January of 2021.
Wow.
So that's a long time off. And then you come back and you're in a funky situation with travel, restrictions on what you can do and all that sort of thing. So, a lot of times, we've seen it. I think we saw it with Konechny. I think we saw it with Provorov. I think we saw it with Carter Hart. A lot of guys plateauing that just didn't handle those situations well. Now that we're out of it, they're bouncing back. And I think Tage Thompson is probably one of those guys, and again, I'm just looking at his NHL stats here. Even in the 1920 season, only one NHL game. So, it was a really big kind of drop off for him. And then now that he's back, I mean, last year was nothing to shake a stick at either, 68 points. But he's going to blow by that here by the All-Star break. So, a big next step for him. Yeah.
No question. Let's take our last time out here on the pregame show. We'll take you right up to the countdown to face-off and all the first period action with Tim Saunders and Steve Coates. We're back after this. It's Flyers Game Day brought to you by Betway on the Flyers Broadcast Network. All right, we are back. It is Flyers Game Day, Flyers and Sabres. God, I didn't think I'd ever be excited to see the Sabres play again. All those great years and Dominik Hasek and Miroslav Shatan and all those guys, Pat LaFontaine, Mo Gilney, all those years. And they're actually on the rise again. So look, that market deserves it. They support that team.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a run there where they've gotten close on several occasions, and
had a couple 10-game winning streaks and didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah, have not been able to finish the job. Flyers got in their way, of course, in 1975, and then the infamous skate in the crease in 1999. They've been there on the doorstep a few times. Like we were talking about. This rebuild that they've been in, it seems like it's been going on forever. The last time they were relevant, they managed to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, I believe, in Game 7. I'm not 100% sure, but that was the team that had Drury, Briere, and Gomez on it. It was just it was just stacked, and they couldn't quite finish the job then. So it's a market that is always been behind the franchise. It's almost as old as the Flyers are, and the league's better when Buffalo's playing well.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let's get to the Flyers line combinations. This has become the easy part of the broadcast. Thanks for that, Torts. We appreciate it. Enjoy it while it lasts, is what I'll say. Here's the lines from warm-ups tonight from Olivia Reiner's Twitter handle @ReinerOlivia. Morgan Frost centering James Van Riemsdyk and Owen Tippett once again. Noah Cates centering Joel Farabee and Travis Konechny. Lawton, Hayes, and Allison. Then you've got Brown, McEwen, and Delarier. York and Provorov on the top pairing. D'Angelo and Sanheim together. And then Ristolainen along with Sealer. We thought maybe Justin Braun would draw back in tonight, but that's not the case in this back-to-back. He's going to go right back to that. Maybe the part of that is the combinations, and he wants to keep York on that right side.
Yeah, that's got to be what it is. I was a little bit surprised as well. I figured they'd get some fresh legs in there tonight, but Tony DeAngelo's legs might be fresh enough that they don't need to worry about it. So they're going to stick with it. And again, they liked what the Flyers did yesterday offensively. You look at that game, and if you defend better in that game, if you don't give up some of the giveaways that the Flyers did. Specifically, the one that even Carter Hart in on the fun. The shorthanded goal was a off face-off. That face-off was created by a giveaway by Hart behind the net. Morgan Frost had a couple, and obviously Tony DeAngelo, the one that ended up in the back of the net. So they're more careful with the puck yesterday against that Toronto team. It's an entirely different game. And really, it's a chance for them to come out and do that against a very similar team in Buffalo right now, and try to put one in the books that's a lot more defensively sound throughout across the board.
Torts was asked if he thought about pulling Hart last night. Naturally, after the game, he said no very quickly. I wonder if that is in fact the case. I mean, when you don't do it, you're not going to say you thought about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, when that shorty went in, I looked right at the bench. We had the bench.
Yep,
we don't normally have the benefit of being, where we can see the bench during a game. But I looked right there, and I didn't even see Torts look down there. A lot of times you start to think about it. You look at the scoreboard. You start looking around. Didn't look to me like Ersson was even a thought. I thought if there was one more like that we might see him. But
I think what goes into that too, Bri, is knowing you're going to split these two games.
Yeah. I mean, you
reticent.
You bring a guy out and you've got a back-to-back, and then you go to your backup in the first game. What are you going to do the next game? So it's it's like I said, stick it out and see what happens.
Yeah, it starts to muddy the waters a little bit if you do that, knowing you have that back-to-back. You're about to get on a plane right after that game. This will be Sam Ersson's 5th NHL game. Here's his numbers so far. He's allowed 11 goals. He's got a 2.90 goals against average and a 905 save percentage. And when you consider that game one, he got roughed up pretty good against the Carolina Hurricanes, got pulled, got back in there. But when you consider that, and those numbers are pretty.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the whole thing as, okay, this was a situation where that first, whatever it was, 26 minutes, I think, was him getting his feet wet, and then he got to take a breath, and then he had to go back in. He probably wouldn't have gone back in, but Carter got hurt. Since then, that's kind of the package I think you look for. And, that's a pretty good starting body of work from that third period on, so he'll have a chance to add to it here tonight.
Yep, and he gets the start tonight against the highest-scoring team in the NHL, averaging exactly 4 goals per game. That's the Buffalo Sabres, if you can believe that. No McDavid, none of these high-flying guys. Tage Thompson leading the way. But stay tuned, because Tim Saunders and Steve Coates, they've got the countdown to face-off, followed by all the first-period action from Buffalo. Not the odd in Buffalo. Stay tuned. Flyers Sabres coming up after this. You've been listening to Flyers Game Day, brought to you by Betway on the Flyers Broadcast Network.